Hi, this is Jason West, and in this video what I'm going to do is show you how to set up a webinar from scratch using WebinarJam version 4. This is July 2020 at the time of doing this video. This is the latest version with all of the updates that they've been doing for quite some time now. Lots of little updates, improvements, tweaks that makes it actually one of the best webinar software solutions that I've come across now. So rather than just add a new webinar and go through each thing, what I'm going to do is edit an existing webinar of mine, because that's going to show you what it looks like once you've added your details and you've got everything set up. So we're going to cover the whole thing. So by the time this video is finished, you should know how to easily set up a whole webinar, get it live, get it working. And I'll do some other videos on how to actually run the live webinar as well, which should really help you out. So let's get stuck in. So what I've got here right away is these three options. I can do a webinar right now, I can schedule one for a later date, which is what most people will do, or I can have like an always on reserved room, and that means you get your own link, and anytime you want to do a webinar you can just send people to that link and then they can register, and then you can just do one at a moment's notice. But we're going to go for this schedule for later, because as I say, that is what most people will do. They'll set it for a week, 2 weeks ahead, and then get everyone to register for it, build it all up, get lots of people to register, and then go ahead and do the webinar itself. So here's the basic settings then. The first thing that we'll do here is we'll upload a thumbnail. This is if you go and share the link to the registration link to this webinar, that's the image that will show up on social media. So it's good to have a nice image there. Then you've got your webinar name, your webinar title, and the webinar description. So that will also be shown once you share that on social media. So make sure that's right as well. And also the webinar registration page uses this too. Then you can choose to have it as private, or you can put it into WebinarJam's own webinar directory. So you get to, so other people can come along to the directory. In fact, let's just go and take a quick look at that now. There we go. And it could be a good way for you to get free registrants, depending on what it is you do. Let's look at this one, cooking and food here. These are all webinars that people have decided to make publicly available on this directory, so they can maybe get a few more people register up to watch. And you can see there's all kinds there. So if you want your webinar to go into that, which is probably a good idea, then you can just select this one here, which says yes, list it in the on-demand section. Then we've got the category that you would like to appear in there. So once you've selected that, as with all parts of WebinarJam, you can't kind of move on to the next thing until you've saved this. So you need to just click like confirm or save, depending if you're editing an existing webinar or you're adding a new one. Then you've got your presenters. So you can put in your name and details there. Let me edit this. So if you want to put a picture of yourself, just click upload, and then you can find a file, a nice JPEG or something, PNG file of yourself, and that will go in there. Put your name and email address, and whether you're a presenter or a moderator. You would put presenter if you're setting this up. Click save and then confirm, and that's done. And then the streaming service, you've got the option of using YouTube to actually put your webinar out there, or WebinarJam Live. I would just use WebinarJam Live. It's just simple and it works. Then we're going to talk about the schedules. So when do you want your webinar to actually be on? And are you doing a single session, which is just one, literally in the future, or multiple sessions, or a recurring series of sessions? And you can look at all the options there underneath and have a little read as to which one's most suitable for you. But generally, I would do it like a single session, and you can see all these dates that I've put in. And then whenever you want to just do a new one in the future, you just literally select the date that you'd like to do the webinar, select the time and the time zone that is set for, and then click add, and it will add it to the list there. And then when someone goes to the registration page, they'll see this future date there, and they'll be able to register for your webinar. So I'm just going to click confirm, and then we'll move on. Then we've got registration. So with the registration, you can use WebinarJam's own pages, and they've got a selection of them there, or you can have people go to your own page to register. But for simplicity, I would recommend just using their own pages. And I'll show you an example of one here. We're just loading up. There we are. So this has been edited by myself, and then I've added a video there as well. That could be a YouTube video, or it could be from Amazon Web Services or something. And that will just help people to understand what the webinar is about. And then when you're happy with your page, you can click Save and Exit. Now, you can also do split testing. To enable that, you just click on this little icon here. And now it will split the audience up, or the visitors to the page, according to the amounts you put in there. So I've put 50-50. 50% of people are going to this page, and 50% will be going to this other super basic looking page here. And then you're able to see through statistics in My Analytics as to which page produces the most registrations for you, which is important because obviously in many cases, you know, you'll be paying for leads. You want to get the most registrations, the most bang for your buck. So it's a good idea to do that. If you're not sending tons of people to the page, don't even worry about split testing. It's not worth it. You need at least 500 people to really accurately tell which page is producing you the most registrations. Once you're done, click confirm. And then the registration form type. So this is when they click on the button that says register on that registration page. Now they're going to get a pop-up, and you can choose the design and the colors. And this has all improved dramatically over the past versions of WebinarJam, and they didn't have all of this. So there's a little example. That's quite a nice one. You know, you've got all these little details here. And then you can choose a color scheme that best suits you, like purple or red or whatever else it is down here. So look at these different designs and maybe just test them out on a mobile as well, just to see which one looks good on a phone. But generally they will probably all be pretty good, but just worth making sure it looks really good on a phone as well, as many people will be registering for your webinar via their mobile. Click confirm, and then you get to choose the fields that you would like in your registration form. The less fields you have, the more registrations you will get. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast, same with any form that you ever do. However, you might want to add the phone number in there, but don't make it mandatory, because obviously the more data that you get from people, if you get their phone number, you're able to send them SMS messages. But you might get some people who just don't want to register and put their phone number in. So give them the choice. Enter your phone number, but just don't make it mandatory. You're going to need the name and email to be mandatory though, so leave those there. If you want to add other things, you can see the only other thing that you can add to the form is the last name, and unless you really need it, don't do it, is my advice. Auto subscription to future webinars. If you are going to do more webinars, then you can just click this to enable them to register automatically for the next one you do and the next one you do. I leave that disabled, but it depends on your business model. You might want to enable it. Have a read and see if that's for you. Then we've got free versus paid. In the majority of cases, it's going to be free that you're doing a webinar with a view to selling them something at the end. But you can actually charge if you want to as well, and send them to a checkout to actually pay, you know, $100, $200 to watch your webinar. So that depends entirely on your business model, but this is where you would choose that. Generally, it's going to be free. Then we've got password protection. If you want to, you can actually password protect your webinar, so you really have got a bit of control. Just say that you know, somebody registered for the webinar, they got hacked, and then someone was able to use their link to log into your webinar and view it. And if that was a serious problem for you, then you might want to just password protect it by doing this. Generally, again, people don't tend to do that. Now we're on to the email side of things. So you can use WebinarJam's own mail. That will just email them. It looks like it's from your own email address. And that will just email your people and just tell them, you know, the time, confirm they've registered, send them reminders, send them replay links. All of that you've got control of in the next phase. You can use your own SMTP Gateway. Again, unless you've got some good reason to do that, I wouldn't bother. You've got to integrate it. First of all, put all your details in, then make sure it works. It's just something else that can break, you know, so I would try not to do that. Or you can use your own autoresponder, and Kartra, as you may or may not know, is the same company as WebinarJam. They're owned by Genesis Digital. So it works really, really well with Kartra. And you can use Kartra to do the emailing, to tell people the link to the live room, link to replay, the date, time, all of that stuff, as long as you set up the custom fields in Kartra first. Now, again, for many people, this is just going to be a little bit tricky, a little bit finicky, and you could end up, making mistakes that cause you problems, like a bad link or something to go and view the webinar. So unless you're pretty technical and confident in doing this stuff, I wouldn't probably do it. It's quite nice and neat and tidy because it means all email communication is going through Kartra. So there's not WebinarJam over here sending emails about the webinar and then Kartra sending other emails there. But however, it does mean you're going to have to set up custom fields and match them up perfectly and make sure everything's okay. So to keep it simple, I would suggest at this point not probably doing that. Then we've got reminders. So here's those emails that come from WebinarJam that I told you about. So first of all, you can add more. You don't have to have like the exact amount they show you here. You can add them. And you can edit them. And here's an example of one. This is the welcome message. So that's sent immediately after someone's registered for your webinar. And you can send a test email if you want to see what it actually looks like when they receive it. If I go to edit it here, this will show you a pretty standard email that they set up for you, WebinarJam. And you can use these shortcodes if you want to add in other things into this email right here. And so it just literally grabs the presenter name, the title of your webinar name, the date and time, saying thanks you've registered, and there's your link to go and view. And if it has a password, if you've decided to password protect your webinar, that'll appear in there as well. So that's that. Pretty much you'll be able to leave all of this, but you can see it says there, add email. So if you want to add more reminders or anything like that, I recommend at least 2 reminders before the webinar. If you want to add more of them, you can do that there. You can also do, you can add in like another one there that says like 15 minutes before. That's always a good idea. If you want to be really, really good at trying to get those people on that webinar, I recommend using SMS too. So you can send a text message to them to remind them. And you can even add a call. But that's another thing you'll need to set up in the integration sections, the SMS and call. The SMS I know is done with Twilio. I'm not sure about the call system. And then after the webinar, you can have a email go out to them with the recording if you've chosen to have the replay. You may not want to have a replay. Depends on the strategy of your webinar and how you're doing it. But in most cases, you would have a replay and give them the ability to watch it in case they couldn't. So if you want to have them email that, you get to choose here how long after the webinar do you want them to get that email. I've put 2 hours, so 2 hours after the webinar's finished, this goes straight out and then sends people the recording of anyone who could not make it. So that's that section. You see, there's a lot to set up, which is why you need a training video like this, really. The notifications then. So this is if you're using some kind of outside system to send them emails. I'm using Kartra, and what I'll do is I will tag them based on what they do. And there's a really good reason for this, and I'm going to show you in a moment why. But if they register, I'll tag them as registered. Then they can, if they've attended live, missed the live, attended the replay, and so on, or if they've left before I deliver my offer, I'll tag them based on those things. Those tags then go to Kartra and they tag that lead with these. Now, when they've done that, it allows Kartra to then go, oh, okay, right, they've been tagged as having missed the webinar. What do I want to do? I can now send them an email. I can add them to a membership. I can do any kind of crazy stuff. But by doing this, you're able to send super relevant messages to people. And that is why I have designed this entire funnel, this one here. It's on my website. I'll put a link to it in this. And what this will do, this is responsible for well over $1 million of sales for me personally, never mind my clients who've made a lot of money using this funnel. And what it does is it uses Kartra to create all of the webinar registration pages, the email sequences that close people down and get a lot more sales out of your webinar than just using WebinarJam alone. So you may want to take a good look at this webinar funnel, watch the video for more information, and take a little look at that. Now, getting back to the setup then, you can use all of these other services and do a similar thing. You can also use Zapier if yours is not here, so that's useful too. Third-party tracking. Now, you can just click here and just put, I don't use any third-party tracking. But if you want to use third-party tracking, you can paste it here. Now, what sort of thing are we talking about? We are talking about Facebook pixel code or Google Tag Manager or something like that. And you get to put your code into the different pages so that Facebook's able to track whether people have been in your live room, watched the webinar, went to the replay, and so on. And then you can show them relevant Facebook ads depending on what it is they have done in the webinar or didn't do, as the case may be. So you can try and move them through that funnel using Facebook ads. So this is where you put all of that code just in here. Next up is integrations. Not integrations, the thank you bit here. So once they've registered for your webinar, you can actually survey them if you want to and ask a few questions before the webinar so you can get a good idea of who your crowd is, who you're pitching to. So you can say, you can do polls, you can do like question and short answer, and then that's all available for you to download in a CSV file before the webinar, which could be a real help because you then can match your presentation a little bit more, talk a little bit differently to your audience based on the things that they have answered in your survey. Great feature. Next up is the thank you page design. So this is the page they see once they have registered. And that's just the page examples there. You can see all of these different thank you ones. So just pick any one really that's fairly straightforward, and then they'll see that immediately after the webinar registration page. Now, we're in the live section. So this is a very important page with a lot of options. The countdown page design. This is the page that they will see when they log on to view your webinar, but they're early. So they're waiting for your time to start. This is the page, and you can see all of the different designs there. There's usually, like you can see in the bottom right, there's a little countdown timer, and that will just tell them as soon as the webinar is about to start. And then the page switches automatically to your live webinar. Then we've got the webinar room design itself. This is new. They didn't used to have this. It was just one design, the end. But now you can choose a color scheme and a different sort of background color there. So pick the one that best suits your brand. Next up, we've got the polls and quizzes. Now, in the actual webinar itself, you've got the ability to poll people. And I quite like polls, so because it gets a bit of interaction with your audience. So I've got a couple of polls here that I ask, like what's your financially free figure and how do you make more money or make money online at the moment? And then you can see I've done option 1, affiliate, blogger, courses, or I'm not yet. And then I can make this poll appear in the webinar by pressing a button. And I'm going to do a video on running a live webinar in WebinarJam. But you can make these appear. So just prep them up before you do your webinar, get them ready, and then they're available for you to use on demand. Next thing you've got is the super important part of the product offer. So you can add 1 or 2 offers. So you've got a selection of offers that you can use in the webinar. But this one here is for my course, paidcourses.com. And there's a coupon code there that they use to get the course at a 50% discount. So it's really, really good. Now you can upload this image here and then put in your offer headline, name of the offer, and then the button link. Very important you get this right. This has got to go to the checkout or the sales page where they can actually buy what it is you're selling. You can broadcast sales in real time, so it literally comes across the bottom of the webinar screen, so-and-so has just purchased, and then your product name, which is good for social proof, really good. If you want that appearing, you know, if people are buying your thing, it makes everyone else think, wow, this stuff is going. This is obviously a good product, I'm in. You can apply scarcity, and what we mean by that is there's a limited number of your course, your products that's available to purchase. And you can change the number of units that are available there. Then you've got a timer. So literally the offer is available for this amount of time. and it will show a countdown timer on the webinar that just runs down to 0, again creating a sense of urgency. And you might want to have it going right up to the end of your webinar, and when the webinar is finished, that's it, offer's over. So that's a really good way of getting extra sales too. So we'll just confirm that. Now we are on video injections. You've got the ability to play videos such as YouTube videos in the middle of your webinar by pressing a button in WebinarJam. So what you want to do is, for example, testimonial videos are really good. You just click add new video, name the video, paste in the URL of Vimeo, YouTube, whatever, and then that will be available for you to use within your actual webinar. Then we have file handouts. Many times people give out PDFs and things, white papers, whatever, in the middle of your webinar. You can just add new file there. And again, with a press of a button during the webinar, you can make this file available for everyone to just click a button and then download it to their hard drive. So it's pretty cool. Then we have the presentation itself. Now you have got the option here. You've got a couple of options. I recommend whatever you do is uploading your PDF presentation in here. And I think you can even upload PowerPoints. Yeah, there you go. You can do PowerPoint, Keynote, PDF, whatever. Put it in there and make sure you do all this way before your webinar, because sometimes this can take a while to upload. It's 80 megabytes maximum, so bear that in mind too. You don't want any nasty surprises if you go to upload this like an hour before your webinar and find that your file's huge and it won't go up. I would do a PDF, get it in there, and then save it. Now, why I said you've got a couple of options is because you can either show the slides, which of course won't be animated. They'll just be stills that will just slide across. Yes, they'll animate maybe from one slide to the next, but the slide itself won't be animated. Now, sometimes I like to do presentations where I can click my mouse and it will make the next thing appear on the slide. Now, to do that, you're going to need to do a screen share. So in the webinar itself, you can share your screen, and then you can choose to share like a PowerPoint or anything like that, a running PowerPoint or a running Keynote presentation, and it will actually just go directly over that on your screen. So then you can do it as normal, and then you can have all those little animations in and start revealing your words on the slide. So that, but sometimes if you haven't got a brilliant internet connection, that can go horribly wrong. So as a reserve, I honestly recommend having your slides uploaded here in case it goes a bit weird and there's a struggle showing it and people are saying, I can't see the slides, your slides are frozen, or something like that, which used to happen a lot more than it does now with the new version of WebinarJam. But now it's pretty solid, but as a backup, have that. So then we have the live situation here, or the replay, sorry. Which then is about the recording. So do you want one is the first question. It's either yes or no. And if you do want it, I recommend recording them anyway. It's handy to have them. So record the webinar session, tick this box here, and that's done. Then we can choose how we want it to be. Do we want an exact replica of your webinar so it plays back just like it was the real thing? Or instead of the original session, you can have a video, your own video of a perfect presentation maybe, if that one was terrible. And then you can also redirect people to an external URL on your own website to watch the replay if you would prefer that. So there's 3 options for you there. Next up, we've got the expiration date, so you can choose to only make that replay available for a short period of time if you want to. Then we have a choice here. We can activate the question box, so people during the webinar, even though they're watching a replay and it's not live, they can ask a question and that gets emailed through to you at the email address at the bottom. Highly recommend doing that because obviously you want to answer any sales questions that come through. Or you can click don't activate the question box at all. That's up to you. Then I think we're on finish and we have done it. We have set up a complete webinar in WebinarJam. I think it's 4.0 is the technical term for it, and WebinarJam at the moment. And that's it. But if you've got any questions or anything, you can ask me under this video if you're watching on YouTube. Also recommend checking out my WebinarJam funnel, built-in Kartra, which is going to get you a heck of a lot more sales, done millions of dollars in sales now, and it gives you everything you need, particularly if you're selling courses, digital products. It's going to be awesome for you. And then if you want any free training, more free training on WebinarJam or webinars, then go to this link up here on my website. I'll put a link above this video or below it, and then it will take you to here. And then you can join my free training area where I give you loads of training on funnels, webinars, Kartra, all of that stuff, all in there for free. And then it's going to really help you out and speed the growth of your business. So thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like the video and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon in another video. Take care.